Hello, everybody. Tracy, Mrs. JDog Flanagan with you here today. I'm the co-founder and senior vice president at JDog Brands. Welcome back to another exciting episode of Tactical Treasures podcast, sponsored by the JDog Foundation. Our podcast gives the military community a voice in the veteran space to share their stories of service, how they continue to make a difference in civilian life, and they share with me a tactical treasure that has shaped their journey in their military career, business, or life. Today, I am honored to speak with Gordon Sumner, who is a decorated leader whose career spans decades of distinguished service in the military, federal government, and the veteran support community. Dr. Sumner served 28 years in the U.S. Army, retiring as a colonel. A combat veteran and Ranger qualified master aviator, his service included commanding an 82nd Airborne Division Air Cavalry Unit in Grenada, making history as the first U.S. officer to command a British Army attack helicopter unit, and ultimately serving as Division Chief for Army Training at the Pentagon, where he managed a $3.2 billion global budget. Following his military career, Dr. Sumner was appointed by Presidents George W. Bush and Barack Obama as the National Director of Employer Support of the Guard and Reserve. Serving at the Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense level, he led more than 5,000 personnel nationwide advocating for military employment rights, work that earned him the Secretary of Defense Medal for Exceptional Public Service. Today, Dr. Sumner continues his lifelong commitment to service. He is the president and CEO of Veterans Moving Forward, a nonprofit providing service dogs to veterans in need, and the founder of Gordon Sumner Consulting. He also serves as an Army Reserve ambassador and holds academic roles with Harvard, George Mason, and Auburn universities. Hello, Dr. Gordon Sumner, sir, and welcome to Tactical Treasures. And thank you so much for your many years of service to our country, sir.
Thank you, Tracy. It's great to be here. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, so we have a lot to talk about today, but I have a few military questions for you about your career. What inspired you to join the Army?
Well, it wasn't so much an inspiration as what's called a low draft number.
Oh,
Yeah, I came in the early 70s, so Vietnam was still going on. And when you come from Alabama at the time, small county, your number's kind of low. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out that you might be on the bubble to get the famous letter. So
right.
we had a great ROTC program at the university that I was attending. And I thought, you know what, if I'm going to go in, I'd already joined ROTC
Mm-hmm.
anyway, just because they have great leadership classes and it's just something different, just to get away from just the normal academics. So I joined it anyway and thought, there's worse things than the Army, and at least it's a job, guaranteed job.
Right.
So I went over to the ROTC department, and it was so funny because the secretary had 6 packets of forms already laid out on the table, waiting for some of us to walk in after the lotto draw that night. And so they, pen and paper, they were waiting on us. So they had what they called the simultaneous membership program at the time. And so what that meant was I stayed at ROTC, but I joined the local Army Reserve unit that wasn't supposed to go overseas. Yeah, well, we know how that worked out.
Right.
But so like I said, and what you end up doing is you're paid an E5 pay when you do drill. You still got the $50 a month ROTC stipend, but when you went to drill, you were treated kind of like a second, really like a third lieutenant. So you were learning that level of leadership, working with your non-commissioned officers to teach you how to be an officer. So it was a great experience, I thought.
Right, right. So is there a particular aspect or moment from your many years of service that stood out as impactful in a positive way for you?
Oh, goodness. This is what, a 30-minute podcast, 20-minute podcast?
Maybe just one or
Yeah.
two moments.
Yeah. I mean, you take a 25 plus year career and say, well, it's kind of like saying, who's your favorite child? The safest thing on that is just the dog. You can't go wrong if you just claim the dog. But but I don't know, for me, obviously I had some great assignments. I mean, you saw the bio. I
Hmm.
served with some really great leaders. I learned a lot, both from the commission side as well as the warrant officer side. I had some terrific warrant officers that I served with, flew with, both in peacetime and in combat. I mean, those guys and gals were the rock of a lot of my commands that I was privileged. So I guess in summary, obviously my command tours. I had 6 opportunities to command during my military career up to brigade. Um, just having that privilege to do that, to have those lives entrusted in you, um, and your leadership and your decision making and everything that I did, I realized that the impact that it would have on these soldiers and their futures. And you learn from good examples, you learn from bad examples. And so I hopefully those who were in my command had great examples and great opportunities. So I guess that would be the number one thing. Second, right behind it was having the opportunity to serve as an exchange officer with the British Army Air Corps. Um, that was a job I had no idea was even out there. A phone call while I was at Fort Bragg to go to the Pentagon and interview with a general for this job. I knocked on the door, walked in, and I'm saluting this 3-star to tell him I was there for this interview, and he had told me to have a seat. And what was interesting is he said, and he was writing, so I just stood at his front of his desk, saluted, held it till he returned my salute. And he looked at me and he says, "Gordon, good to see you again. Have a seat. I'll be right with you." And so I sat down and I'm going, who is this 3-star general? I mean, nothing was clicking.
Oh
And I
no.
thought, but in the way I knew he knew me was I go by my middle name. Being a junior, I got the Gordon where Daddy got the Lewis. So if you don't know me, people do the Lewis, hey, how you doing? That kind of stuff. But he looked right at me and said, "Gordon, good to see," and then he said, "Good to see you again, and I'll be with you in a minute." So to make a long story really short, I had been with the 82nd Airborne Division. I commanded the Air Cavalry Troop into Grenada in '83. So this interview was in '86, 3 years later, about almost 3 years. And during that tour on Grenada, I was visited by Admiral Metcalf, the 3-star vice admiral that ran the operation, General McMull, Lieutenant General McMull, the 18th Airborne Corps commander, and they had 2 1-star generals, a Marine guy and an Army guy. I call them beginning generals. And so they came, and obviously I got these 2 3-stars over here on my flanks. So I didn't pay attention to these 1-stars. I let my captains and major, you guys go take care of them. And so come to find out, that 1-star Army guy, that was him. And that him was a guy named Norman Schwarzkopf. So
Ah.
I'm in Stormin Norman's office to interview for this job, and he gets up and he comes around, he sits down, and he looks at me and he says, "So how have you been since Grenada?" And I was like, "Oh man, I I almost said, 'Sorry, sir, I didn't recognize you,' but I didn't. I just said, 'Oh, doing fine, sir.'" And he said, "So you're interested in this job? You want this job?" I said, "Yes, sir." And he said, "You got it." That was my interview.
Oh, okay.
You want it? You got it. So like I said, that was an opportunity to be the first. And I laugh. As far as I know, I'm the first and only American to command a British attack helicopter squadron. So I don't know if I did a good job or I did such a bad job that the Brits said we're not letting an American command the unit again. I have no idea. But
Oh
it was
wow.
great. I still keep up with a lot of the Brits that were in my unit. In fact, I just got an email from one of the guys' spouses the other day about his coming birthday. He wanted to know if I might be able to come to the UK to celebrate his birthday. And I was like,
Oh
that means a
wow.
lot. So,
That yeah, yeah, definitely. Oh
yeah.
wow, how exciting. How exciting. Um, okay, so you get out
Yep.
and you've done a lot of nonprofit work.
Yes.
And you also have Gordon Sumner Consulting as well. So, what kind of came first? Did the consulting come first and then you went into the nonprofit world? Talk to me about that journey.
So I was debating on when's the right time to retire. And and it's kind of one of these odd things. I mean, people serve for years, and then it's kind of like we know we have to throw away in the Army. I call it the OD blanket, security blanket. You know, you gotta toss away your Linus blanket one of these days and step out into the big world. And I talked to a guy who had been my last sergeant major that was on my staff in the Pentagon, and he had retired about a year or two earlier. And I called him up. I said, "Hey, Steve, when did you know to retire? What made you retire?" And he said, "I got up one morning and realized that it was time. I just had that feeling that it was time." And he said, "So are you starting to feel that way?" And I said, "Yeah, as a matter of fact, I am." And he had joined a company that had just started a new office. The company was out of Huntsville, and they had just opened a new office, or in the process of opening a new office here outside the Pentagon in Crystal City. And so he introduced me to the owner and to the president of the company. There's two gentlemen, I saw them that day, and they literally offered me a job during a Christmas open house. And said, if you want a job, you got it. Whatever you want, salary wise, you got it. We just want you to come on board. You tell us when you want to do that. So I still thought about it, and I wanted to do at least one more tour. I was happy. Our daughter was in high school here, having a good time. And then the Army said they were going to ship me to California. Now, right before that, I had been separated from the family for about 5 year total of the last 8 years,
Oh,
doing a
wow.
lot of geographical bachelors. I missed my daughter's birthday 5 years, two Christmases, and here I was looking forward to having a birthday that I hadn't been with her in 2 years.
Right.
And then they're going to ship me out to California. And I just went, you know what? I'm done. I'm not going. There's enough. There are plenty of tours that I can do right here in the National Capital Region, the Pentagon. I don't need to go to California for another joint tour before I pin a star on or something. I don't. It's not that
Right.
important.
Yeah.
So I called up the company and I retired at Summerall Field at Fort Myer, Virginia, right down the street here. On Friday, Monday morning, went right back into the Pentagon in a coat and tie, literally my old office just down the hallway. Saw the chief of staff, my old boss, and he told me I still looked ugly, even in a coat and tie. Said, "Yep, I'm back." So it was just good. So I was able to make that transition for about 5 years, and then that's when I had the opportunity to work for the Bush administration, and then held on with Secretary Gates. He asked me if I'd stay on during the part of the Obama administration, so I did that. And then that's when I said, okay, I don't want to get into defense contracting work. I just want to do my own thing. Initially, to work with small minority-owned businesses, disadvantaged businesses, veteran-owned businesses, veteran-owned
Hmm.
small businesses, to get them going. And I was successful. I mean, it was paying Miss Vicky's Visa card bill, so I knew that was working. But at the end of the day, Tracy, I just didn't have that sense of happiness,
Mm.
justification, job fulfillment, if you know what I
Right.
mean, having
Yes.
all that
Yes.
years before. So I tell people I literally had a come to Jesus meeting with myself one Saturday night. So I had a glass of wine. I'm sitting there in the den, and I wrote down what do I what is it that I like doing, and what is it that provides me fulfillment. And I now use that as a class when I teach like at Auburn University or George Mason University.
Right. Right.
I'm actually doing a presentation. I'm the keynote speaker for the Auburn summer graduation commencement ceremonies in August, and I'm using for the graduate school uh, exercise that afternoon for the masters and PhDs. I'm using that class as part of my presentation on how do you identify what are your values, what are your strengths, and what are the top things that are most important to you.
Hmm.
And you put all that together, and that's where you discover who you really are at that moment. And that's what I did. And I realized that I like working with people. I like supporting people,
Hmm.
i.e., nonprofits. I mean, I've been around nonprofits since I was, that big. Boy Scouts, church work, church choir. I used to drive some of the older members of my church. I go pick them up on Sunday morning, make sure they could get to church, and those kind of things. So it
Right.
was all about selfless service and that. So that's when I
Hmm.
shifted the model from business to nonprofits. Never looked back. It was a
Right.
great tenure for. the last 16 years until I finally retired. My wife laughs. She said, "You're not retired."
You're not
And
retired.
I'm not retired. I'm semi-retired, I guess. But I had a nonprofit. I was able to help start one, and then I came back to be the president of a great nonprofit called Veterans Moving Forward. And what we did, and they still do, is that they provide service dogs to veterans nationwide that are dealing with mental or physical challenges at no cost, absolutely no cost to the veteran or their family.
Mhm.
Uh, they come in, they interview, they go through a medical review board, they make sure all the boxes are checked, and the doctor says they have to have written permission or support from their primary medical providers. And if they're having mental health, they also have to have written support from their mental health primary care provider that a service dog would indeed make a difference in these military members' lives. And then it's just see if the dog picks them. I mean, we try to put the right dog. I mean, we've got great trainers and they know exactly what they're doing after many years, but it ultimately is up to the dog.
Right.
And so far, we were very successful in doing that for years. And so I retired out of that. And now I don't advertise for work. So I'm not like on LinkedIn saying, hire me, even though I see her Visa card bill doing this number. So if there's anybody out there that could use somebody, please let me know. So I can kind of chip that Visa card down a little bit. But I do get some calls and people ask me if I could help on a project or something like that. And I enjoy that. So
So are you were the formerly the president and CEO of Veterans Moving Forward?
yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
Got it.
I was the guy who kind of helped put it together through my consulting business. I was asked by the
Right.
two founders to
Hmm.
help form this nonprofit and get it off the ground. I served on the board of directors just as a volunteer, secretary for about 4 years or so. Then I really started getting busy with the job, so I kind of shifted away from that and started really growing the business. And then about 6 years, 7 years ago now, some of the board members called me. In fact, one board member actually called me from London. He was overseas asking if I would. He thought I was like retired, done. He said, "Would you come out of retirement and come back to VMF, but not as a volunteer, but full time, paid to take over and fix it?" And I
Fix
didn't
it.
realize what fix it meant until I showed up and discovered that the staff had already turned in their letters of resignation. So they were walking out the front door or the back doors. I'm walking in the front door.
Oh no.
There are 8 dogs in the training center. Um, and they had about a month and a half of cash liquidity in the banks. And I'm thinking, wow, okay, we could do this. So I begged the staff if they would just give me 30 days or 90 days, 3 months. And if you don't like me or you don't like the direction we're going, I'll write letters of recommendation for you to help you find jobs because at least we tried. You were team players, and it just didn't work for whatever reason. So 5 years later, um, we grew the business. We got it off and running. We started placing dogs. We got out of Virginia. We're placing dogs nationwide. Put a lot of money in the bank. Hired a couple more people, another trainer. They got a new facility in Leesburg, I understand now, and I felt it was the right time that I had done what I was asked to do, and it was time to get some new people in, a new leader, younger, with a lot of connections, a lot of work in nonprofits, and just happened that Carrie Klein was leaving the Army Historical Foundation,
Hmm.
and so I talked to her, and she liked it, and the staff liked her, and I begged the board. I said, if you only do one thing for me, hire her,
Yeah.
okay?
Right.
And they did. They offered her
Right.
a letter, and she accepted, and now they're just like, you know, going crazy. So I'm so proud of them. But
That's
yeah,
amazing. Yeah,
yep, very proud.
I've been to the website and yeah, I love it. Service dogs are amazing. The
Yep.
training that they go through and the much needed support that they provide to veterans. It's just amazing. And it
Yeah, we
is
always
it
tell people that dogs don't change lives, they save lives.
they
And what
do.
we do, what we did at VMF was we gave that veteran a new leash on life, as we say with their dogs. So it
Right.
was just it was a miracle to watch every day. Loved it.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
did. Yeah, it was fun.
Hello, viewers and listeners. The JDog Foundation is a 501c3 nonprofit whose mission is to prevent veteran suicide and heal veterans' mental health and PTS. 100% of all proceeds goes directly to the organizations we are partnered with. If you go to jdogfoundation.org, you can learn more about our mission, donate, and if you are in need of help, please dial 988. Our motto, saving lives one veteran at a time. Check us out, jdogfoundation.org. And it is, what you say that the dog, it's up to the dog kind of chooses the veteran. Um, and that is so true. That connection, that just has to sort of happen organically. Um, it can't be forced. So I agree with you there. So amazing, amazing stuff, sir. But we have come to the time in the podcast where I have to ask you a very important question. And that is, what is your tactical treasure that you would like to share with us? What has helped you in your journey in life?
Well, I would say a couple of things. One, you got to believe in yourself. Uh, if you don't believe in yourself, nobody else is going to believe in you. It's just like working with nonprofits. You have to believe in what you're doing. You have to get people surrounded. One of the biggest enjoyments I had was my last job in the federal government as a national director for Employer Supported Guard and Reserve. That is the largest organization within the Department of Defense that's supported by volunteers.
Mm.
Yeah, we did have uniformed military, government civilians, contracted teams out there, but we had volunteers in every state and territory that worked for the organization. And we built it from 1,600 to over 5,000 during my tenure. And how that happened was we got people to believe in what we were doing and made them feel that they were part of the solution, not just a volunteer, that they were actually appreciated, respected. They had a voice at the table, and where we always didn't disagree on everything that they wanted, at least they know they had the opportunity to express their viewpoints in an open forum, and then we would take some of their ideas and go with it. So I think having opportunity to work with people, get their input, having those treasured people to do that, made the organization and any nonprofit that I've had the privilege of working with, and all the volunteers that belong to those nonprofits. To me, those are just treasurable people. And the other thing is, and we talked about this when you and I were talking some months back, getting ready for this. Uh, as as you know, I'm a member of the Santee tribe in South Carolina.
Mhm.
My mom was Santee. That's where it all comes from. So I'm 50% Santee, and as I tell people, I'm a smidgen of Eastern Cherokee out of Georgia from my great grandmother or great great grandmother who married into the Sumner family. And part of the tribal custom is you get a name, and so my name in the tribe is Wolf That Moves, uh, and it's a long name in the Lakota Santee Lakota language, about that long. And at the end of the ceremony, the chief came over and gave me my own stone. Now you probably can't see it. I'm going to try to hold it up, but if you
Oh,
look,
okay.
you can see the wolf.
I can see it. Yes.
So as I told you when we were talking, this is the one thing I was going to bring. This is my treasure right here.
That's very, very special. Very special. It's part of your heritage.
Yes.
I love that. That's amazing. It's amazing, sir. Thank you for sharing that. It's very special. I would have a couple other questions to ask just before we wrap up our time. Um, I would ask any advice for fellow veterans that are struggling with that transition piece after they serve.
Oh, yes. There are so many great organizations out there, including a lot of the major veteran service organizations. And I tell this to the younger veterans: don't fall into the old cliche of I don't need to join the American Legion or the Veterans of Foreign Wars because all they are is a bunch of gray haired guys sitting around the bar smoking and drinking beer. That is absolutely not true. Now, I'm not going to say that it doesn't happen. And there may be
Right.
some post out there in the hinterlands that, yep, the old guys still sitting around, some of the female veterans as well, drinking beer, telling war stories. But I can tell you, for example, my American Legion post here in Springfield, Virginia, post 176, it's anything but that. It's full of younger veterans, very, very active. We have active programs, we have active support programs. One of the key positions that we have that's headed up by one of our Afghan Iraq veterans is the veteran service officer. And this individual's sole focus is on helping veterans transition as well as making sure that you have your VA disability claims put into the system. Even if you don't receive any kind of compensation for it, at least get it into the system because while you're 50 years old today with no problems, when you turn 70, that problem might manifest itself. And now you're already into the system with something that labels you as potentially having a back problem or a knee problem or trauma or hearing or something that you've experienced during your military career. That's in the system. And so when something manifests itself later, now it's just a review to say, hey, I was okay 20 years ago, but now I'm having a hard time getting around because I've got neck problems or a back surgery or something. And now you get what you deserve. The government's not giving you anything. You're getting what you have earned through your military service. So go to these organizations, let them help you transition, make some connections. I also encourage people to volunteer for great nonprofits. That's a great way to network because
Hmm.
you've got people who have leadership positions in industry. They're involved with these nonprofits. They see you supporting that same nonprofit. You build a bridge of trust because of that. And now when you're looking for a job, you've got you've already got some people that you can talk to and use as references.
Right, right. That's great advice. And I've heard about that veteran service officer. I had somebody else on my podcast that talked about that in his area that he found as veteran service officer, and it helped him
Mm-hmm.
navigate through the benefits and the VA system and everything. That's amazing. I feel like that's not widely talked about, and maybe a lot of people don't know that these people actually exist.
Yep. And like I said, they're there, especially in the American Legion, VFW. I believe Military Officers Association of America, MOA. I think they have one.
Hmm.
Military or the Purple Heart used to have some, but I don't. I think they're trying to bring them back now, but
Hmm.
they don't. But you could always reach out to a local military or the Purple Heart chapter that's in your local area, and they can help you make a connection
Right.
with somebody. That's what I do. I get a call from a Purple Heart Medal recipient um, inquiring about my Purple Heart chapter, and then they make a statement. I said, well, we don't have a VSO in our chapter or right in this area, but let me introduce you to my VSO guy over here at the American Legion, which is exactly where we meet anyway, same
Right.
same building. And
Right.
then now you've got that connection, so it
Right.
works.
Yeah, that's great. That's really awesome. Um, so, sir, before you go, can you tell us where people can find and connect with you if they would like to take advantage of your consulting, and where they can find out more information on veterans moving forward?
Well, for veterans moving forward, their website is www.vetsfwd.org. Vets forward vetsfwd.org. They're out there. I know they'd love to hear. They're always looking for volunteers to help doing different things like puppy raising and puppy sitting and just coming in. We do, and you can contact them. But when I was there, we would get a lot of kids out that would help. A lot of the students
Mm,
in the local area and the counties have to do community work, especially when they're juniors or seniors. They got to log, I think it's like 60 hours or something like that. So these kids would come out and we would track it and give them credit for volunteering at the training center, doing things like walking the dogs, cleaning out the kennels, keeping the place set up for visitors. So there's always volunteer work that can be done. For me personally, best way is LinkedIn. You got the name right here, so just
Right?
dial it in there on LinkedIn, contact me, and then we can touch base. And I would ask that your listeners let me know that you're reaching out to me via this podcast, because I would love to let Tracy know that her podcast is actually working and that I didn't scare people away, but they're actually listening. So if you could let me know, I'll let her know, and then that way it kind of let her know that she is indeed doing great work with this great podcast. So that would be nice to share.
Thank you. Thank you very much, sir. I appreciate that. We'll be sure to get the word out. Sir, it's been an honor to have you on today. Thank you so much for, again, your many years of service and the great work that you still continue to do, in your neck of the woods. I appreciate you. I appreciate your time today, and God bless.
I appreciate it. Just final thoughts to everybody out there listening in. If you really want to know what makes a difference, this is what I told all of my staff. This is what I told all my troops, and this is what I told everybody that worked with me, is that what I want you to do is make sure that when the people we support are better off tomorrow because of what you've done today, that's all I'm asking. Just make sure that what you do today is going to make those people better tomorrow. And you do that, can't go wrong. So good luck to everybody. And thanks again, Tracy, for having me on your show. I had a blast.
It was great to have you, sir. Thank you so much for those parting words. Hello, viewers and listeners. Thank you so much for tuning into this episode of Tactical Treasures Podcast. We've just finished up an amazing conversation with Dr. Gordon Sumner, who is a decorated leader with his career spanning decades of distinguished service in the military, federal government, and the veteran support community. He was formerly the president and CEO of Veterans Moving Forward, which is a 501c3 nonprofit providing service, emotional support, therapy, or skilled companion dogs for veterans with physical and or mental health challenges. The vision is to have VMF become the premier national not-for-profit organization improving the lives of veterans needing service, emotional support, therapy, or skilled companion dogs at no cost to the veteran. To learn more, donate, or to apply, go to vetsfwd.org. And if you would like to speak with Dr. Gordon Sumner about his consulting and hire him, please reach out to him on LinkedIn, Dr. Gordon Sumner, PhD. Thank you for tuning in. And don't forget, you can find Tactical Treasures Podcast on all your favorite podcast platforms, on our website, tacticaltreasurespodcast.com, as well as our dedicated YouTube channel. As an official radio partner, Tactical Treasures is now airing on Reese Across America Radio on Wednesdays at 5 p.m. Eastern and Saturdays at 10 a.m. Eastern for the encore. You can also find Reese Across America Radio on the iHeartRadio app, the Odyssey app, and the TuneIn app. JDog is honored to be an official Reese Across America sponsorship group. When you sponsor a $17 Veterans Wreath through our group, $5 goes straight to the JDog Foundation to help heal our heroes. Your contribution directly supports our mission to prevent veteran suicide and provide lasting mental health and PTS resources. You can donate right now at reachacrossamerica.org/JDog. Again, thanks for joining us, and we'll see you again on another podcast real soon. Bye-bye now.